The last thing Mateus Ribeiro remembered before his world turned upside down was the smell of Atlantic rainforest and the sensation of falling. Now, opening his eyes to the sterile white ceiling of Santa Clara Hospital in Petropolis in Rio de Janeiro's mountainous region, he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed within him. "Welcome back to the land of the living," said Dr. Elisa Cardoso, her welcoming smile contradicting the clinical precision with which she checked his vital signs. "You gave us quite a scare, Mr. Ribeiro." Mateus tried to sit up, wincing at the sharp pain radiating from his temples. "What happened?" "Lightning. Quite unusual for this time of year," explained Dr. Cardoso, her pen scribbling notes on the chart. "You were hiking in Serra dos Órgãos when a sudden storm arrived. A forest ranger found you unconscious near Veu da Noiva waterfall." Matthias frowned, trying to piece together his fragmented memories. He remembered the sudden darkening of the sky, the electricity in the air, and then nothing. Just a strange dream of floating through an infinite sea of light and information. "The good news is that physically, you're fine. All tests came back normal," continued Dr. Cardoso, "which frankly is a miracle considering the circumstances." As she spoke, Mateus noticed something peculiar. Around Dr. Cardoso's form, a subtle bluish aura pulsed, contracting when she mentioned his tests. Without thinking, he blurted out, "You're not telling me everything." The doctor's expression flickered momentarily. "What do you mean?" "There was something unusual in my brain scan," Matthias said with absolute certainty, though he couldn't explain how he knew this. Dr. Cardoso's professional composure wavered. "That's correct. Your neural activity shows patterns I've never seen before. Increased activity in regions normally dormant in most people." She studied him carefully. "How did you know that?" Matthias shook his head, equally confused. "I just knew." After being discharged the next morning, Matthias returned to his modest apartment above the bookstore he owned in the small city of Nova Friburgo. The familiar space now seemed somehow different, charged with an energy he had never noticed before. As he moved through the living room, objects seemed to respond to his proximity, books vibrating slightly on shelves, lights flickering when his emotions intensified. When the phone rang, Matthias knew it was his sister Olivia, before even checking the caller ID. "Matthias? Thank God you're okay," Olivia's voice sounded, tinged with worry. "I've been trying to reach you for days." "I'm fine, Liv. Just a small accident during my hike." "Small accident, Matthias? You were struck by lightning. Mom and I were worried sick." As they talked, Matthias found himself increasingly distracted by what he could only describe as Olivia's emotional imprint coming through the phone. Concern, relief, and something else? Dissembling? "What aren't you telling me, Liv?" he asked abruptly. The line went silent for a moment. "What do you mean?" "Something's bothering you. It's not just about me." Another pause. "How did you—" "All right. I wasn't going to tell you yet since you're recovering, but I've been having these dreams, Matthias. Strange dreams with you surrounded by light, saying things I don't understand. It started the night of your accident." Matthias's heart raced. "What kind of things?" "That everything is connected, that we live behind a veil. It sounds crazy when I say it out loud." It didn't sound crazy to Matthias, not anymore. In the days that followed, Matthias discovered that whatever had happened on that mountain had fundamentally altered his perception of reality. He could sense the emotions of those around him, predict events moments before they occurred, and sometimes, when he concentrated intensely, move small objects without touching them. One night, while reorganizing books in his store, he felt drawn to a dusty volume he didn't remember acquiring, Quantum Consciousness, The Science of Human Potential, by Dr. Helena Vasconcelos. As he opened it, a business card fluttered to the floor. Vasconcelos Institute for Consciousness Studies, São Caetano, Paulo, SP. The moment he touched the card, a vision flashed in his mind. A modernist building nestled in dense forest, a laboratory filled with strange equipment, and a woman with intense grey eyes looking directly at him as if through time and space. Matthias knew, with inexplicable certainty, that he needed to find this woman. The next morning he closed his bookstore indefinitely and packed a small suitcase. As he was about to leave, the bell above the shop door chimed. A tall man with striking silver hair and piercing blue eyes entered. "Matthias Ribeiro," the man said, not a question but a statement. "My name is Daniel Silveira. I believe we have much to discuss about what happened to you in Serra dos Orgos." Matthias felt a strange resonance with this stranger, not quite trust, but recognition. "How do you know about that?" "Because the same thing happened to me 15 years ago," Daniel replied calmly. "And to others. What you're experiencing isn't random, Matthias, it's an awakening." An awakening to what? Daniel's expression was solemn yet exultant. To the truth about human consciousness and the nature of reality. The lightning wasn't just an accident, it was a catalyst. Your consciousness has been enhanced, for lack of a better word. "That's impossible," Matthias protested weakly, even as he felt the truth in Daniel's words. "Is it? You've been sensing emotions, predicting events, maybe even influencing physical objects with your mind. These abilities have always been within you, within all humans, but dormant. The electrical shock merely removed the barriers." Matthias thought of Dr. Vasconcelos's book, The Strange Visions, his new abilities. Why me? That's the question, isn't it? Why any of us? Daniel looked at Matthias's packed suitcase. "You're seeking answers. I can help you find them, but we need to move quickly." Why the urgency? "Because you're not the only one who knows something happened to you on that mountain," Daniel said grimly. "There are people who have been monitoring these phenomena for decades, people who believe such abilities should be controlled, studied, and utilized for their own purposes." Matthias felt a chill. Government, among others, organizations that transcend national borders. They call themselves the Collective. Daniel stepped closer. "They detected the energy surge when you were struck. They'll come for you, just as they came for me and the others. The question is, will you be ready?" Matthias felt the weight of the decision before him. Remain in the comfortable reality he had always known, or step into an unknown world of expanded consciousness and hidden dangers. But deep down, he already knew his answer. He had felt the connection to something vaster than himself, a web of consciousness linking all living beings. He couldn't go back to ignorance. "What do I need to do?" he asked. Daniel's expression softened, with what looked like relief. "First, we find Dr. Vasconcelos. She's been researching what she calls quantum consciousness for decades. Her work is the key to understanding what's happening to you." "And then?" "Then," Daniel said with quiet intensity, "we help you master abilities you don't even realize you possess yet. Because what happened on that mountain was just the beginning, Matthias. The lightning didn't give you these abilities. It merely awakened you to the power that was always within you." As they left the bookstore together, Matthias cast one last look at his old life. He could feel it already receding, like a dream upon waking. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and a truth that both terrified and thrilled him. The truth that reality was far more malleable and humans far more powerful than anyone had ever dared to imagine. The Vasconcelos Institute for Consciousness Studies contrasted sharply with Matthias's expectations. Instead of the sleek, modernist building from his vision, he and Daniel arrived at a restored colonial mansion, nestled among towering araucaria trees on the outskirts of Campos do Jordão, São Paulo. Its weathered exterior concealed cutting-edge technology within, a perfect metaphor, Matthias would soon learn, for consciousness itself. "Appearances can be deceiving," Daniel commented, noting Matthias's confusion as they approached the wrought iron gates. "Helena prefers to keep a low profile." A security camera swiveled towards them, and the gates opened silently. As they walked up the stone path, Matthias felt a strange tingling sensation, as if the very air around the institute was charged with an invisible energy. "You feel it, don't you?" Daniel asked. "The field." Matthias nodded. "What is it?" A quantum coherence field. Helena's creation. It amplifies consciousness and protects the Institute from certain detection methods. Before Daniel could elaborate, the massive wooden door swung open, revealing a woman in her 60s with a shock of silver hair pulled into a tight bun. Her piercing grey eyes matched exactly what Matthias had seen in his vision. "You're late, Daniel," she said, her voice carrying both authority and warmth. Her gaze shifted to Matthias. "But I see you found him." "Dr. Helena Vasconcelos," Daniel introduced, "the world's foremost expert on quantum consciousness, though the world doesn't know that yet." Helena's expression remained impassive, but Matthias sensed her assessing him, probing not just his appearance, but something deeper. "Come in," she said finally. "We have much to discuss and little time." The Institute's interior defied its traditional exterior. Sleek laboratories filled with equipment Matthias couldn't begin to identify occupied the ground floor. Researchers in white coats moved purposefully through the space, many pausing to look curiously at the newcomers. 15 years. "Curve private funding," Helena explained as she guided them through the facility. "After the academic world labeled my research pseudoscience, I found benefactors who understood the implications of my work." "Which are exactly what?" Matthias asked. Helena paused, turning to face him fully. "Scientific proof that consciousness is not produced by the brain, but merely filtered by it. That what we call reality is a consensual hallucination, and that with the right training, humans can transcend the limitations they've been conditioned to accept." She led them to a circular room dominated by a series of monitors displaying brain scans, quantum field measurements, and data streams Matthias couldn't decipher. "Your accident wasn't random, Mr. Ribeiro," Helena continued, pulling up his medical records with a few taps. "The lightning acted as a quantum reset for your neural pathways, dissolving the filters that normally constrain human consciousness." "The same thing happened to me," Daniel added, "and to the others." "Others?" Matthias asked. "How many are there?" 17 confirmed cases worldwide, Helena replied, though we suspect more that haven't been identified yet. She brought up images of men and women of various ages and ethnicities, each with their own story of an electrical accident, followed by inexplicable abilities. "We call ourselves the Awakened," Daniel explained, though that term sounds a bit cultish for my taste. Helena placed Matthias's brain scan alongside a normal one. "See these areas? Dormant in most humans, hyperactive in you now. Ancient texts called this the third eye or seat of the soul. Modern science dismisses it as vestigial neural tissue. They're both wrong. It's a quantum antenna connecting individual consciousness to the universal consciousness field." Matthias struggled to process this information. "You're saying I can, what? Access some universal field of information?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Helena confirmed. "The abilities you've noticed, empathic perception, precognition, psychokinesis, are just the beginning. They're side effects of your expanding consciousness, like a radio suddenly picking up more frequencies." A young researcher interrupted, handing Helena a tablet with urgent data. Her expression darkened as she reviewed it. "They've found us," she said to Daniel. "Sooner than we expected." Daniel tensed. "How much time do we have?" "Hours, maybe less." Helena turned back to Matthias. "I'm sorry, but your crash course in quantum consciousness will have to be accelerated. The collective has picked up your energy signature." "The people Daniel mentioned? Who are they exactly?" Helena's expression hardened. "A consortium of government agencies, private corporations, and old money interests who've known about consciousness expansion for decades. They've suppressed this knowledge while weaponizing it for themselves." She quickly led them to a lower level of the Institute, protected by biometric locks. Inside was a copper-lined chamber filled with humming equipment. "The Faraday Sanctuary," Helena explained. "It will temporarily mask your energy signature." She turned to Daniel. "Prepare the evacuation protocol. Get the others ready." As Daniel left, Helena faced Matthias with renewed intensity. "Listen carefully. What I'm about to tell you contradicts everything you've been taught about reality. The universe isn't made of matter, but of information. Consciousness is the fundamental force that shapes that information into what we perceive as reality. Like a computer simulation, Matthias asked. A crude analogy, but serviceable. The point is that once you understand this, truly understand it, you can begin to influence the program. She handed him a device that resembled an elegant meditation headband. This will help you access your expanded abilities more deliberately. Matthias took the device hesitantly. Even if I believe all this, why would these people, this collective, care about me? Because true consciousness expansion is contagious, Helena said gravely. A fully awakened mind can catalyze others. It's how consciousness evolves. The collective fears this evolution because it can't be controlled. Their power depends on humanity's continued slumber. A distant alarm sounded. Helena cursed softly. We're out of time. She pressed a flash drive into Matthias's hand. Everything. You need to know is on here. Trust only Daniel and the others he introduces you to. You're not coming with us? Helena smiled sadly. I need to ensure the research survives. Make certain it lives on even if I don't. Before Matthias could protest, Daniel returned with a young woman with copper-colored hair and intense green eyes. This is Sophia, Daniel introduced quickly. Another of the awakened. She'll help mask your energy signature as we travel. Sophia nodded to Matthias, her expression a mixture of curiosity and wariness. So you're the bookstore owner from Nova Friburgo who got zapped. Welcome to the strangest club on earth. Matthias felt an immediate connection to her. Not romantic, but a resonance he couldn't explain. We can sense each other, Sophia explained, reading his confusion. All the awakened are connected through the field. It's how Daniel found you, Helena. Checked a monitor displaying security footage. They're at the gates. You have 5 minutes before they breach the outer defenses. She pressed her palm against a scanner, opening a hidden door that revealed a tunnel. This leads to the river. There's a boat waiting. The Institute's quantum field will mask your exit. As they prepared to leave, Matthias gripped Helena's arm. I still don't understand. What am I supposed to do with these abilities? Helena's expression softened. What all humans are meant to do, Mr. Ribeiro. Evolve, grow, and help others do the same. The power to reshape reality has always been within humanity. It's our birthright. The collective has simply convinced us it doesn't exist. The alarms increased. Daniel and Sophia pulled Matthias towards the tunnel. One last thing, Helena called after them. The formula on the flash drive. It's incomplete. The final variable isn't mathematical. It's consciousness itself. You'll understand when the time comes. As they raced down the dimly lit tunnel, Matthias felt a strange certainty growing within him. The life he had known, comfortable, predictable, limited, was over forever. Ahead lay a more fluid and vast reality than he had ever imagined, filled with danger and limitless potential. What happens now? He asked Daniel as they emerged near the riverbank, the sound of helicopters growing in the distance. Daniel's expression was grim but determined. Now we find the others. And then we wake up the world. As their boat cut through the dark waters, Matthias looked back to see spotlights illuminating the Institute. Black-clad figures swarmed the property, while helicopters circled overhead. He thought of Helena, her entire life's research and the sacrifice she was making to give them this chance. In that moment, something shifted within him, a deeper resolve, a clarity of purpose. The headband device in his pocket seemed to pulse in response to his changing emotional state. I feel it too, Sophia said quietly beside him. Your consciousness expanding. It happens in quantum leaps, usually triggered by intense emotional states. Can you teach me to control it? Matthias asked. Sophia smiled, genuine warmth breaking through her cautious demeanor. That's why we're here. That's why we found each other. None of us can do this alone. As the Institute disappeared from view, Matthias felt both a profound loss and an unexpected freedom. The reality he had always accepted was dissolving, revealing something far more extraordinary underneath. And despite the danger pursuing them, despite the uncertainty ahead, He couldn't deny the exhilaration of finally glimpsing his true potential, and that of humanity. "The world won't accept this easily," he said, more to himself than his companions. "The world never accepts evolution easily," Daniel replied, "but that doesn't stop it from happening." Sophia squeezed his arm reassuringly. "Besides, we don't need to convince everyone at once. Consciousness shift happens person by person, mind by mind, and it all starts with the acceptance of one simple truth." "What truth?" Her green eyes reflected the moonlight as she answered, "That the power to change reality was never outside of us. It was within us all along." 3 months after escaping the Vasconcelos Institute, Matthias stood at the edge of a remote lake in Chapada dos Veadeiros, watching the sunrise paint the water with gold and crimson. The hideout, a rustic house belonging to one of the awakened, had become the temporary headquarters for what Daniel now called the consciousness revolution. Matthias had changed in ways both visible and invisible. His posture was more confident, his eyes clearer and more penetrating. The abilities that once frightened him now felt like natural extensions of himself. More importantly, his understanding of reality had fundamentally transformed. "Beautiful morning," said Sophia, joining him at the shore. Over the past months, they had developed a deep bond through intensive training sessions where she helped him master his expanding abilities. "I still can't believe how different everything looks now," Matthias replied, gesturing to the landscape around them. "It's like I was colorblind before." "You were, we all were," Sophia agreed, seeing only the physical spectrum, missing all the energy and information surrounding us. Matthias extended his consciousness outward, feeling the subtle electromagnetic fields emanating from every living being, from the towering cerrado trees to the fish beneath the lake's surface. With practice, he had learned to interpret these fields, reading information that had always been present but previously inaccessible to his consciousness. "Any news about Helena?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer. Sophia's expression fell. "Nothing definitive. Our contacts say she's being held in a collective facility, but we can't pinpoint her location. They're using quantum shielding technology similar to ours." The thought of Helena in captivity weighed heavily on Matthias. After their escape, the collective had seized the institute and all its research. According to their intelligence network, other awakened strategically scattered across the globe, Helena was being forced to develop consciousness suppression technology. "We'll find her," Matthias said with quiet determination. "I can feel it." They returned to the house where Daniel and 5 other awakened were gathered around a holographic display generated by technology salvaged from the institute before its fall. "Matthias, perfect timing," Daniel said, making room at the table. "We've decoded more of Helena's flash drive. The formula is starting to make sense." The flash drive contained Helena's lifework, a theoretical framework for understanding and amplifying consciousness. Part quantum physics, part neuroscience, part something entirely new that defied existing scientific categories. "The key is entanglement," explained Raquel Chen, a former quantum physicist who had awakened after a laboratory accident 2 years prior. Not just at the particle level, but at the level of consciousness. Helena theorized that all human minds are already entangled through what she called the consciousness field. We just don't perceive it due to neural filtering. "And the formula?" Matthias asked. Raquel displayed complex equations and neural mapping diagrams. "It's a method for creating a cascading awakening effect. If we can synchronize enough expanded consciousnesses at once, we could create a field strong enough to affect others within proximity, potentially triggering a mass awakening." The implications were staggering. How many would we need? According to Helena's calculations, consciousness influence follows the inverse square law. 17 fully awakened individuals could potentially trigger changes in thousands, who could then affect millions. Daniel's expression was solemn. "This is what the collective fears most. Not our individual abilities, but the contagious nature of awakening. They've suppressed this knowledge for generations because their power depends on collective unconsciousness. But something's still missing," Raquel continued, pointing to a gap in the equations. Helena mentioned a final variable that isn't mathematical. Consciousness itself, Matthias completed, remembering Helena's parting words. He took out the headband device she had given him, which he had learned was a prototype quantum field amplifier. I think I understand what she meant. Now, the formula works as a framework, but ultimately consciousness can't be reduced to mathematics. It requires intention, belief. A silent realization spread through the group. Of course, Sophia breathed. Consciousness is both the tool and the material, the observer and the observed. Matthias felt a surge of clarity. We were approaching. This too, mechanistically trying to hack awakening. But what if awakening isn't something we do? It's something we allow. Something we remember. He closed his eyes, focusing his consciousness on the connection he felt with everyone in the room. Not just empathic understanding, but a deeper resonance, as if their individual minds were nodes in a vast neural network. I can feel all of you, he said softly. Not just emotionally, but your actual consciousness, as if we're aspects of the same being temporarily experiencing separation. Sophia's eyes widened. The quantum field amplifier. What if we use it to boost this connection? Daniel nodded. Understanding dawning. A consciousness feedback loop, amplifying our collective awareness until it reaches critical mass. And then we broadcast it, Raquel added excitedly, using the formula to target the most receptive minds first. For the next week, they worked tirelessly, refining the formula and preparing for what they now called the awakening. Matthias and Sophia spent hours in deep meditation, strengthening their connection to the consciousness field and each other. The other awakened across the globe reported similar experiences, a growing sense of unity and purpose. On the night of the new moon, they gathered by the lake. 17 awakened, forming a circle with Matthias at its center. Each wore a quantum field amplifier linked to a central device that would broadcast their combined consciousness. As they began to synchronize their minds, Matthias felt a surge of energy unlike anything he had experienced before. The boundaries between self and other began to dissolve. He saw, felt, knew the life stories of everyone in the circle, their joys, their sorrows, their deepest hopes and fears. And beyond them, he sensed the vast ocean of human consciousness. Billions of minds, each a unique facet of the universal awareness. He understood then what Helena had meant about the final variable. It wasn't just belief or intention, it was love. Unconditional acceptance of all that is, was, and could be. With that realization, something shifted. The energy building within the circle expanded outward in concentric waves. Matthias perceived it, touching mind after mind, awakening dormant potentials, dissolving the illusion of separation. In cities and villages across the world, people paused, looking around in wonder, as if seeing reality for the first time. Children laughed with sudden insight. Enemies embraced, recognizing themselves in the other. The very fabric of consensus reality began to shimmer and flex. The collective, of course, fought back. They activated suppression technologies, flooding the airwaves with fear-inducing signals. But it was too late. The awakening had reached critical mass, spreading faster than they could contain. In the days and weeks that followed, society underwent a transformation unlike anything in recorded history. Old power structures crumbled as people realized they no longer needed external authorities to govern them. Technological breakthroughs exploded as scientists accessed deeper levels of universal knowledge. The arts flourished with unprecedented creativity as the boundaries between imagination and reality blurred. It wasn't a utopia. Humanity still faced challenges and conflicts. But now they approached them with expanded awareness, seeing interconnections and possibilities that were once invisible. Matthias stood once again by the lake, marveling at how much had changed in such a short time. Sophia joined him, intertwining her fingers with his. "We did it," she said softly. Matthias smiled. No, we remembered it. We remembered who we really are. As the sun set, painting the sky in impossible colors, they felt the pulse of billions of awakened minds, a symphony of consciousness, each unique note contributing to the grand melody of existence. And somewhere, in a reality not so far removed, Helena Vasconcelos smiled, knowing that her life's work had come to fruition. The experiment in separation was ending. Humanity was coming home to itself.